Hi, it's Sunday School here. Today we're going to tell you about carbonic maceration, aren't we, Mallory?
Oh yeah.
Carbonic maceration is a winemaking technique that is completely bonkers, and the first time someone told me about it, I thought they were making it up. And the reason we're telling you about carbonic maceration is because it's going to be Beaujolais Nouveau Day, and that is the day when a Gamay wine from the region of Beaujolais in France is released. It's the first thing released from that harvest, so they make it within like a couple of months, and it's always fresh and fruity, and it should be fun. They make it using this carbonic maceration method.
Dun dun dun.
Which Mallory's going to tell us about now.
First, I'm going to tell you how wine is made normally. So, if you want fermentation to happen, which is what makes alcohol, you have, what is that, Martin?
Yeast.
What's this?
It's the sugar in the grapes.
The sugar in the grapes. It produces three things. What are those? Or two things. Let's go with two.
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide, CO2, and
Alcohol.
So when you are making something using the process of carbonic maceration, what's happening is the yeast is not doing anything. It is completely, actually it's nothing like this. It is a completely different type of fermentation.
Here's the weird thing about carbonic maceration is it doesn't use any of that yeast eating the sugar thing. It's all going to happen inside the grape itself without anything else acting on it. It's just a little chemical reaction that happens inside the grape that's going to make this alcohol that's going to make wine all on its own. I don't understand it, Mallory. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh, it is crazy. So this is a weird looking grape bunch. What you're going to do, what a winemaker does, instead of crushing this up, putting it in here and crushing it up, you know, like foot stomping or however you're going to do it, you keep these grape clusters whole. So they're all these whole grape clusters inside that fermentation tank, and you let it sit. But you don't want the yeast, because yeast is found on the outside of grapes just anyway. You don't even want the yeast to accidentally start doing its thing, because you don't want that type of fermentation. So you want this to be an anaerobic atmosphere, so no oxygen. You want the oxygen out. So what people will do is put in CO2. So then, because there's no oxygen and no yeast doing its thing, these little grape berries, this is a zoom in of a grape berry, sit there, and this fermentation process happens because of the enzymes inside that grape become the catalyst for it. It's called intracellular fermentation. So it creates alcohol, and sometimes the grape berries will burst because they're just so full of alcoholic power. And that's how it happens.
And that gives you a much more kind of fruity wine.
Yeah, you want me to tell you why
Yes.
they do that? So why this matters for you drinkers, it's going to do two things. First of all, because when the wine is fermenting, it's not, the juice inside each berry is not contacting the skin. And keep in mind, the skin of the grape contains the pigment and the tannin. The tannin is that stuff that dries out your mouth that makes red wine like cotton ball mouth. That's the tannin. So that stuff is found in the skin of the grape. So while it's sitting here fermenting, the juice is barely contacting that tannin and pigment. So what that is going to give you is a wine that's very light and juicy and not very tannic. It's like drinking Kool-Aid. The second thing that's going to give you is, because this fermentation process is completely different from the normal fermentation process, it's going to create chemical compounds that are totally different, and ones that are very specific to this process. And those are things that you're going to smell, create the aromas. So these wines are commonly going to be very fruity, almost like candied fruit. Cherry, strawberry, raspberry, even things like vanilla, clove, sometimes bubblegum, which can be kind of controversial. We won't get into that. That's what those wines are going to taste like. So
that's how you make a wine with carbonic maceration. That's how Beaujolais Nouveau is made. Go out and find a Beaujolais Nouveau.
Or a Nouveau style.
Nouveau style. There's a lot of American winemakers.
If they say Nouveau style, this is probably what's happening. Are you going to tell them to go to sundayschoolwine.com?
Yeah, actually go to sundayschoolwine.com is what you should do. So if you want to know more about that in depth, more about Beaujolais, more about Nouveau, more about Gamay, and all those great things, you should come to our Gamay class, which is on
November 15th, right before Thanksgiving. Perfect time. Gamay is classic Thanksgiving wine.
November 15th, go to sundayschoolwine.com, find out more, get some tickets, sign up for mailing list, find out all the great stuff that's going on, and some super fun secrets coming your way soon.